This is Adam Paul Seagram for mydrawingstutorial.com. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to paint this tree. In this lesson, we'll be using these colors: brilliant blue, titanium white, brilliant red, brilliant yellow, phthalo green, Mars black. I've prepared this background, so very quickly I'm going to tell you what I did to make the space. I used a bit of pale blue and white with some water to create this washy sky. Add a little bit of white for clouds and kind of use this brush to just softly sketch it in. And then I added a bit of green, a bit of blue, a hint of red to darken the green, and did a washy background here. I took a little bit of the blue on the edge of my brush, watered down again, and just created a sort of a distant range, and brought a little bit of that blue-green in here to give some depth to the foreground and the midground. We'll begin by making a quick sketch. I'm going to use a pencil just to kind of sketch in and lay out the direction of the tree so I know where I can be painting. I want to make it not too stiff and have a little bit of movement to it, and so that it twists a little, turns, and we'll color these lines, and we'll cover these lines later. Maybe there's a split here, and just a basic skeleton from which we can work. Like that. And you can add other things later. We'll be covering all that up with paint, so we're ready to begin. Okay, we're going to begin by working on the trunk and establish a little bit more of a base, and we're going to mix some color. Got some water in my brush. This is sort of a stiff, flat edge brush. It's good for drawing and filling in. And we're going to take some light yellow to begin with, and I'm going to add a hint of red to it, and just the smallest amount of black to dirty it up. So we've got a nice brown. This is soft. We start soft, we can build it up later. So I'm going to let this brush just kind of follow these lines. I'm going to turn the brush to get, as we go out to depart to the ends for a thinner effect. So at the beginning, we'll start big like this. Or this is just a sketch. And let the brush give you some shape to the tree. The color's a little yellow right now, but that's okay. I'm splitting it here. I think now we'll turn it into a bit more of a brown, so we add some more red to this, a hint of black, a hint of black, a hint of white, and we've got a nice reddish brown. It's good for starters. We'll start to fill in some of that. It's a little on the red side, so we'll put a bit of green in it, make it dirtier, shadowy, a little more red. We start soft, we build up later. There we go. We've got a contrast to the background this way. And we're going to establish our light source has been coming from here, so we'll have shadows on this side, so I'm going to already start bringing that out. So there's a darker area here. It gives a feeling of we know where we're going. And then I'll use the edge of the brush to kind of paint these lines in. Come up again, follow that line, let it jiggle around a bit, so it's not perfect. The perfection is nature, in nature is the imperfection in nature. I've added these darker marks just to give texture and interest to the tree. And again, these short pieces will be covered, there'll be spaces, leave spaces for the leaves. You don't see all of the trunk all of the time. We'll be covering some of this other as well. So just let it be raw and natural looking. Don't worry about how perfect or imperfect it is. The trees grow many different ways. And I've added some of this into the foreground just to bring that color in. You'll see more texture in the foreground. One always does. Just to make it, to ground the painting also. Now I'm going to wash my brush so that I can begin the leaves. Even though I'm going to use similar colors, I just want a clean brush. And I think I'm going to switch I'll start out with a big flat brush once again, stiff flat brush, and do some darker backgrounds. And they won't be very distinct, but they'll give an indication of shadow and placement. Just mix up kind of a dark neutral color. We always go from dark to light. And I'm going to just begin sketching in some leaf-like shapes in some of these areas. You can do different movements, go up and down. I kind of like this bit of a sideways for this particular tree, but we'll see where it goes. Leaving a bit of the trunk showing, painting on each side of it occasionally, and sometimes painting right over it. Okay, I'm adding blue and green, a little bit of yellow, with a hint of tiniest amount of red to sort of neutralize it and give it a little bit of a brown quality too. And red is also good in the shadows. Dark red is good for shadows. It's beginning to look like it has some life out here on the savanna. Just dabbing it around like they're dancing in the wind a bit. Let the paint, some of the paint run out so it's softer in the background. Bring some down into here, into this landscape as well. Just kind of dabbing it around. Let the brush make its own shapes. And every now and then drop a little bit of that into the foreground. It adds more depth. You're using your color all over the palette, all over the painting and from the palette. Now under the tree, the grass will look greener. You want it to look like an inviting place to be. You always want to make the painting look like you make someone want to go there, spend time there. So put the feeling of what it feels like to be there to you in it. Now I've taken some more green. I put a little more yellow in it this time, just to give it a little more life. Again, spreading it around up into the upper areas where there's more light, where the sun would be hitting it. So it's, you have a bit of a canopy where the sun is catching it. Now we'll take some more yellow into the green and put it right out on the tips. Just dabbing. Don't drag the brush too much, just dab a little here and there. Little bits coming through. Just small bits of sunlight. Now we'll mix a little white in. Do the same thing out on the ends. Little bits of light. And again, we're going to drag a little down into the sunlight, into the foreground. Don't put it under the tree in the shadow, just keep it around it. And let the background remain kind of pale and neutral as it's in the distance. Okay, coming back into the painting, I want to get some of that paint out of my brush. I'm going to go back into the darks again. I like these these places of dark contrast. I want to make them a little darker. This is about light and dark. All painting is, so the light source will be here. We'll get to that later, but right now we want to undershadow the deeper areas. Using the red, the green, a little bit of the yellow-green to create some more depth again. Underpainting. There we go. That indicates darkness, some shadow, depth. Don't want to get too much, just some areas. The eye doesn't perceive every leaf, but it sees dark and light. And put some back down in here, where the main shadow is. like that. Put a little bit in the trunk. A little bit more of that darkness. And don't do a straight do a line, just do here and there because the light is breaking through and hitting parts of the trunk. Just random placement. And we'll do a couple accents on some trunk pieces. Not a lot, just a little here and there. Indicates deep, full sun, heavy shadow. We'll break it up. Light between light and dark once again. We're getting more depth. Let's put on the underside. A little bit of leaf on the underside. So take that same dark color and just make a few little leaf forms, only on the bottoms though, not the top. Just using the tip now of the brush to get these little wedges. They look like a brown leaf, but that's okay, it's just the light. Not all leaves are green. Okay, now I think it's time to wash the brush out, get this paint out of here. It's a lot of darkness. Okay, now we're going to put more life into it. I'm going to mix a new green, and I'm not sure what until I mix it. I've got some yellow, some white here, into the green. Let's see how that works. Yeah, it's just a little more green. Some overlay onto some of these brown areas, just slightly. Just laying it in very light. Mix it out, spread it out. It's a dappled effect. Very random. And the same down in the shadow. Add a little bit of light, some dappling. Keep it darkest near the trunk, near the base. Okay, then we're going to go back into, we need more yellow. Add a hint of green to that. Need more yellow. Pinch of red in it. Make it a richer green. A little bit of white. Let's see what we come up with. It's got to be stronger. Yellow's a very filmy color. Oftentimes you have to do it 2 or 3 times to get the effect you want. Get coverage. Just filling in a little, softening a little here and there. Now I'm going to go in, pull in quite a bit of white and quite a bit of yellow, again, to go up on the accents on the tops. There we go. I'm using the tip of the brush to create these little leaf shapes. And up on the ends where the sunlight is hitting it. Let the dark areas stay dark. A little more white up in the sunlight. And here I'm just letting little clumps of white sit on the canvas. Not too much, just certain areas. It's beginning to look like a tree in the sunlight. Particularly out on the ends. Let them drift out a little bit. Again, the dappled effect is really working. And then step back and take a look to see if there are any areas that appear like they need more of something or less. This is a little strong on the dark. Now, going back into the green, yellow, I want to do some bit of highlight in the foreground. Here and there also. Soften that a bit. Okay, going back in after stepping back and taking a look, I can see that I want to make the highlights lighter and I want to make the darks darker for more contrast. It gives more depth. So my paint brush still has a lot of green and white and yellow in it, so I'm going to just stick with that for the moment. Go for some more white and some more yellow. those two together in the green pod. So they have a hint of green, a greenish cast. And we get this yellow, wonderful citron kind of color. A little bit more of that, especially on the top. Don't be afraid to let them float out there a bit. Yeah, see what I like when it takes some, just add some pure yellow. And dab a little here and there into those sunny areas. These are really just almost splotches of yellow thick paint. And I want to put some in the foreground as well. Need a little water in that brush because I've got a lot of paint in there. Dab a little into the ground. I'm going to take some of that same color and put just a hint on the trunk here and there, like more dappled sunlight, and into the branches. Very little bit here and there. Adds more depth. And we might go back into our original darker color, brown, created by green and black, or green and red. Get a nice deep brown, maybe a touch of dark blue. And I want to add a few more like slender twig branches using the very sharp edge of this brush. So there's a little more interest and depth. And make them gentle strokes. The little branches are slender and they're more graceful. And split and go like that. Same thing here. It doesn't matter where they end up, just as long as it's a bed of leaves to support the leaves. And if it gets kind of shadowy and thin, that's okay. Remember, the eye really can't discern these things, especially from a distance. We just see a bit of a blur with little bits of accent here and there. And I want to add a little bit darkness to some of that. Make it a little darker. Make the darks darker. Just here and there. Take some of that into the trunk. Enhance the shadow a bit. And I think I want to put just a hint of white into the clouds. So clean my brush for that. Okay, so I'm going to add more white. Get it a bit kind of liquidy, especially at the top of the painting. Kind of frames the painting by lightening the top of the sky. Gives you more distance, background. Okay, there we go. We have a tree. The style in which we painted this today was a bit of an impressionistic style with the dabbing and the blending and the striations. There are many ways to paint a tree. This is just one. And I think it came out nicely, and I hope you enjoy this, and you can experiment with your own strokes as well. And we will do others at another time. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. For more acrylic painting tutorials, be sure to sign up for our free newsletter at mydrawingtutorial/acrylic, or click the link below. Until next time, happy painting.